Good morning, everyone. My name is Caitlin, and I am the events manager here at the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Rav and Deep this morning. Rav Badil is the co-executive director for BNI Ontario Southwest with his sister and business partner, Deep. His BNI journey started over 15 years ago, when as a self-employed sales professional, he was advised to cold call, knock on doors, and send out mailers to generate sales. Seeking out alternative methods to grow his business, Rav stumbled upon a local BNI chapter. Seeing local like-minded professionals support each other to success resonated with him right away. After attending that first meeting, Rav knew it was the best way to grow his business. From that day onward, he launched his own chapter in Cambridge that's still up and running to this day. And by nurturing relationships with other local business owners, he was able to grow his client base without ever having to cold call or knock on doors. In 2019, Rav formally exited his prior business to join his sister and co-executive director in supporting local entrepreneurs full-time. Deep is co-executive director for BNI Ontario Southwest, where she helps support existing members and assists individuals in establishing new BNI chapters. She and her brother Rav are the recipients of the 2021 Executive Directors of the Year Award. As a former teacher, Deep's passion is to help others gain a greater understanding of their business and how to position themselves for success by building out a successful referral network. Her goal is to help all business professionals connect with their ideal referral partners. You can often find Deep enjoying the outdoors on her daily walks or diving into a good book. Deep's keys to success are always self-reflecting to improve and being purposeful and intentional at chasing after her goals. Today's session has been brought to you courtesy of our community partners, Graham Matthew, Gordon J. Wallace Remax Realtor, Growling WLG, Inner Sea Initiatives Inc., JD Development Group Corp., Jocelyn Insurance, Mitographics Inc., Powerline Logistics Services, and RLB. Welcome, Rav and Deep.
Thank you so much for having us today. It is great to be here to chat to you a little bit about maximizing your networking efforts. And so we want to extend a very big thank you to our sponsors for today and also for the Chamber for hosting today's session. So I've got the absolute pleasure of co-presenting today's session with my big brother, Rav. We are always looking for ways to connect individuals to their ideal referral partners. So today's workshop is going to help you do that. What we'll do is we'll focus on how building your visibility within the business community will help you build your credibility and lead to increased profitability and ultimately help your business grow and continue to be successful. With today's session, we're going to help you create a really strong plan for what you can have in place for when you attend networking events. And we'll discuss a follow-up system that we have found works for ourselves so that you can always follow up, follow through, and follow back once you've connected with those individuals who you would like to network with. But to start off, I want to share with you a story about VCP. We as an organization, BNI, have been around for 35 years, so we've got lots of stories that we like to share. And our founder of BNI, Dr. Ivan Meisner, he has amazing networking strategies that he always rolls into stories, and he's always more than happy to share them with others. He often shares the following story, which I found when I first heard was quite incredible. Some time ago, Ivan was speaking at an in-person networking event, and there were about 500 people in attendance. The room was filled to the rafters, as he describes it. And so Ivan, standing at the front of the microphone, asked everyone, how many of you have come here to sell something today? Can you please put your hand up if you've come to sell? And 95% of the hands in the room went up. So a majority of the people in that room put their hands up. So then he said, all right, put your hands down. And the next question he asked was, can you raise your hands if you came here to buy something today? You can likely guess how many hands went up at that question is how many of you came to buy something today? Two hands went up. And that's where I've been at some point cracked the joke, something along the lines of, I'm really sorry to the two of you who have your hands up, because now I've put a target on your back for everyone who's here to sell something. But I share this with you because it's an interesting situation that happens from time to time when we may attend where we might be at some networking events. We refer to this as the networking disconnect. It's when we're in a room full of people who are looking to sell their products and services, but nobody is buying. And that's where today's session is going to help you a little bit. It's going to help you come up with a strategy to get the most out of your networking efforts so you can avoid that disconnect that may happen when you're in a room full of individuals looking to sell products and services, but no one's looking to buy. One of the first things that we need to do when it comes to networking is really establish the depth of relationships that we have with others. In BNI, we refer to this as VCP. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what that V, the C, and the P stand for. So visibility is the V. That's the phase where you know someone. You likely know their name, their business name. You probably know their profession and a little bit about what they do, but that's it. Things are really quite surface level when you're in the visibility level with someone. The individuals that we run into at, say, a trade show or out and about in the community, they would likely fall under this category of visibility because we don't know a whole lot about them yet. The next phase here is credibility. This is where you start to like someone a little bit. You're starting to learn a little bit more about their business. You're learning a little bit more about them as a person, how they do business, and you've probably had some in-depth conversations with them, but just a few. This is really the level where the trust starts to develop. And I think we can all agree that trust is really important when it comes to building in-depth referral relationships and business relationships with others. So there's two different levels to credibility, and I'm happy to set up a conversation outside of today to discuss that with you. But what's really important is credibility overall. It's where you're having a conversation with someone where you've got a really good foundation for a business relationship and you're having in-depth conversations with them. Trust is paramount to everything that all of us do in business. If we don't trust someone enough, it's going to be really difficult for us to push that business relationship to the next level. So this is where that trust really starts to develop and those conversations are happening. In that credibility phase, we've really got to have that established trust to be able to push it up to profitability. And this is where that high level of trust exists. It's when you're in this phase with others, you're very comfortable with referring to those individuals because you know that you can support their business with that established relationship that you have. I'd like you to give some consideration when it comes to VCP, so the know, the like, and the trust, who you know that might fall into each of those categories. You can probably think of one or two names that would fall under V for visibility, one or two names that fall under C for credibility, and P for profitability. So give some consideration to each of those names that kind of fall under there. When you identify where that business relationship is with someone, that's what really allows you to establish a clear set of expectations for one another and then reach a mutually beneficial outcome to those conversations that you're having. When you're both on the same page, that's what allows you to push that relationship even further. In many cases, when we're networking or when we meet others, we may have a tendency to want to skip straight to profitability. And this is that stage where you're asking for a close or you're asking for a sale or those connections. Sometimes you may have kind of been the victim of this. You may sometimes inadvertently do this yourself. You may jump straight into sales mode with someone when we don't quite have permission for that yet. We may not even have gone through that visibility and credibility where we can, showcase to them who we are and start to build that trust, but we automatically jump to profitability. And that's where that networking disconnect starts to happen. So when you view VCP as a bit of a continuum, when you picture it on a graph that over time your VCP starts to increase, that's where we move through visibility, through credibility, and get towards profitability and beyond. That's where we're really getting the highest return on our networking investment of that time that we're putting into networking. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to pause for a moment and we are going to do a poll. There's two questions that we'd love to hear your responses for, and Rav's going to help me out in sharing the results. So we are going to launch that poll in just a moment. I'll give you an opportunity to answer those.
This is interesting. It's looking to be a bit of an even split. So about 30% said yes, 40% there's no strategy, and again about 33% say sometimes. So on the graph, it is looking even, which is an interesting split. So about 30%, 40, and then 33 in that range.
So of that question of having a goal of how many people you want to meet. All right, perfect. Let's move to the next question and see what the answers are here. So if you are helping someone with their needs before proposing an ask, is that a strategy that makes sense to you and that you follow?
So far, it's 100%. In terms of yes, it does make sense, and it does resonate with the attendees. It's 100%.
All right, amazing. So interesting poll results there. Let's talk a little bit more about this and dive deeper into this. So you've decided that you're heading to your next networking event, but what happens next? How do you identify who you want to connect with or how many individuals to connect with? Rav and I, we're big believers on having a strategy on who to connect with when you do get to a networking event or when you're planning to go to a networking event, because that's what's going to A, help you get the most out of your networking efforts, and B, that's what's going to help you stand out from the crowd and be memorable, but in a good way, because that's what's really key, is being memorable in a positive way so that you stand out in the minds of others. We recommend to actively connect with those individuals that you can align yourself with, who will support your overall growth of your business and who'll be there for you for not necessarily generating business, but also to build community, for that support aspect of it, for those that expert knowledge that you may need. All of those individuals are there for you. If you've already got an established relationship with these individuals that you're looking to connect with, even better. This is what's going to allow you to continue to support those relationships. The idea here is being very strategic to build relationships that are an inch wide and a mile deep, rather than a mile wide and an inch deep. So again, you really want relationships that are an inch wide and a mile deep, because that's where it's going to benefit you the most. So let's imagine for a moment that you're heading into a networking mixer in the next couple of days, or you've decided to set aside time for prospecting on LinkedIn. It's super important to know who to connect with. And here's what I do before I attend any sort of networking event or before connecting with individuals on LinkedIn. I figure out what my profitability hub is. And so we're going to work on this together. And this exercise is going to be your roadmap for when you're prepping for your next event, so that you know who to connect with as you head into it. Our goal with today's session is for you to be able to walk away with a list of who you can surround yourself with for maximum profitability. So you'll want to have something that you can write, take notes with. So either a piece of paper or perhaps a Word document, because we are going to get the wheels in motion for your profitability hub. Right here, right now, we're going to build out your hub, and you're going to be able to identify who to network with. There's 3 steps in this process that we will be going through in order for you to identify that. So the first thing is identifying your ideal client or your target market. The next one is identifying who else wants to meet them. And then the third part is letting others know who you want to meet, so that you can build out that profitability hub. So how do we start doing this? A starting point for this conversation is with target markets. Many of us have more than one target market, and that is okay. For the purposes of today, I am going to ask you to select one of your target markets to focus on for today's activity. So if you focus more on personal services, I want you to give some consideration to consumer demographics that fit your target market. Many of our BNI members hear me say this catchphrase. I say it all the time. I will say, yes, it's super cheesy, but it makes sense. And that is specific is terrific. So you'll want to be as specific as possible with what I'm about to ask you to do. If one of your target markets is more kind of under the personal services side of things or consumer demographics, please list down a specific age, breakdown, gender, income, list information like where they live, any hobbies they may have, any defining characteristics that paint a picture of your ideal customer or client. You want to be specific, specific, specific. If your ideal clients are more businesses, please include those business demographics for us. So is there a specific industry that you want to connect with? Is there a location, a company size, a revenue, a department, any sort of defining characteristics that might help you out. I am going to get you to list that down on your piece of paper. As I said earlier, you'll often hear me say specific is terrific because it's true when it comes to your target markets. If you're unable to explain in detail who your target market is, believe me when I say others are really going to struggle who those are, who your target market is if you can't define it for yourself. We definitely won't be able to determine that either. So do give some consideration to being super specific. Now, let's talk about what the first step is as you give some consideration to your ideal client. The first step to building out our profitability hub is identifying that person. So I'm going to give you an example before I flip this to you and provide you the opportunity to do this. So for the purpose of this exercise, I've picked a business profession that some of you in the room may even represent, and that's going to be my example. We'll pretend for today that I'm an SEO specialist, which I'm not. Trust me, you don't want me working on that stuff. We got some experts in the room that we leave that to, but I'm going to pretend that I'm an SEO specialist, an individual that helps businesses boost their presence online. And so if Rob were to say to me, Erin, as an SEO specialist, who is your target market, or who's one of your target markets right now? And so I'll identify that one of my ideal clients this year, if I wanted this to be an absolutely ideal year, an ideal client for me or target market would be family-owned restaurants with 15 to 20 employees who are looking to increase their capacity to provide delivery or takeout meals. So for the purposes of this example, that's who I'm going to pretend that it is. So with this example in mind, seeing how specific I've been, at the center of your hub, I would like for you to list down who your target market is. And please do be as specific as possible. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute or two. And those of you who know me know that's a bit of a struggle. I'll stop talking and I'll get you to, at the center of your hub, write down who your ideal client is. Okay, so hopefully you've been able to get super specific with your ideal client and provide us with that information of the age, budget, geographic location, or the size of the company, number of employees, that sort of thing, depending on who your ideal client is. So now that you've written that down, I'm going to flip back to our example for a moment to demonstrate what I'd like you to do next. So step one was to identify our ideal clients, which we've done. Step two is to now consider the other businesses who are looking to meet our ideal clients that we have listed. So if we look at our example of the SEO specialist, remember, I had indicated that I'm looking to meet a family-owned restaurant with this criteria. So giving some consideration to who else is already doing business with them or who else wants to do business with them, those are the names of the businesses or the types of businesses I'm going to start listing around my profitability hub. For example, an equipment supplier would likely want to meet with a family-owned restaurant because they may be able to provide them with equipment. A point of sale merchant would likely want to have a conversation with a family-owned restaurant because the point of sales merchants would be able to help the restaurant with services. Food wholesalers, the restaurant needs food, right? So wholesalers would probably want to do business with that restaurant. Delivery agencies, so we can get that food out, would also be another good one that the family-owned restaurant would want to meet. So keep in mind here, I want to approach this from the lens of who else wants to do business or who else is looking to meet my ideal client. So either who else wants to meet them or who else wants to do business with them. And I start approaching it from that side of things. A few other businesses might be IT consultants, printers, bookkeepers, so on and so forth. So I always encourage coming up with ideas a little bit outside the box that I wouldn't traditionally associate with my ideal client. If I think back to what I mentioned earlier, if in a really good year as an SEO specialist, I might meet 4 or 5 of my ideal clients. So I may meet about 4 or 5 restaurants who need my help, and that is fantastic. But what starts to happen when I focus on meeting the other businesses that want to meet my ideal clients is things start to change a little bit. For example, the IT consultant may know 4 or 5 of my ideal clients. The point of sales merchant may know 4 or 5 of my ideal clients. Delivery agencies may know 4 or 5. Bookkeepers may know 4 or 5. Now, we didn't share with anyone that we'd be doing math today, but if I pick 5 of those businesses and they each know 5 of my ideal clients, quick math, that's 25 of my ideal clients that I now have access to simply by shifting my focus from looking to meet those family-owned restaurants to now looking to meet the other businesses that are having conversations with those family restaurants. And that's what allows me to take my networking efforts from being a really strong networker to being a master networker. So what I'd like for you to do is, I've given the example of the SEO specialist. What I'd like you to do is come up with some lists of some businesses on the outside of your hub who would also like to meet your ideal client. So I'd like you to go back to your example for a minute or two, and I would like you to list out some businesses who either are already doing business with your ideal clients or who would like to do business with your ideal clients. So I'll give you 3 minutes to do that, and then we'll chat a little bit more about what happens next. As we approach the kind of halfway mark of the time to finish this profitability hub, I would recommend trying to think of some outside the box examples. Businesses that you wouldn't necessarily traditionally associate yourself with or think to work closely with. For example, one of the ones that we often share, which is a bit of an eye-opener within BNI, is for our financial services teams. A really good referral partner for them would be a suit tailor or professional tailor, because what tends to happen is our financial advisors and our financial services teams who would like to meet clients who have a little bit more of a larger sums of money to invest. Those individuals who have larger sums of money to invest, sometimes they're getting custom suits made. And so the tailor is having a conversation with individuals who are getting these custom suits made, who have a little bit of flexibility in budget and have some funds that they would like to invest. And it becomes a really good opportunity for the tailor to introduce those individuals to the financial advisor. So where traditionally our financial services teams and our financial advisors wouldn't necessarily think to associate themselves with a suit tailor, it actually makes sense to make that strategic alliance. So I share that with you so that you can kind of try and come up with some outside the box ideas for your own businesses as well. So I'll give you a couple more minutes to work on that. All right, so hopefully you've had the opportunity to list at least, I'd recommend 5-ish businesses, although I do understand I've only given you a couple of minutes to work on this. So I would recommend taking some time to come back to this list later today or later throughout the week. If you're struggling to come up with names around your profitability hub, please feel free to reach out to Rav or myself after today's session. We're more than happy to help. That's the beauty of BNI. We're all in this together and we're all here for everyone's continued success. So if you're trying to figure out who else to align yourself with in terms of meeting your the other businesses that want to meet your ideal client, please certainly reach out if you are looking to add to that list. Great networkers, once we've got that list filled out, great networkers ask for introductions to their ideal clients, which I think all of us do a really good job at. We're quite excellent at asking for introductions to who our ideal clients are. Where we become master networkers, that's where we start to level up and ask for those introductions to those in business with our ideal clients or who already have that established relationship with our ideal clients. That's what we want each of you to be able to do. So when you start to look for, if I use the analogy of a golden goose and a golden egg, you want to look for your golden goose that will lead you to your golden egg. And that really will become a game changer for you and for your business. But having your profitability hub complete, you now know who to align yourself with and how to start those conversations. My other recommendation, in addition to revisiting this to fill out your list later on today, I always recommend coming back to this with a different one of your own ideal clients or target markets. So I used the restaurant industry as one of the ideal clients. If I picked a chiropractor as an ideal client, that would have been a very different list of businesses around my profitability hub. So what you'll notice is the list of businesses around your hub will change depending on the type of ideal client or target market that you've listed. So absolutely, please do revisit this for each of your target markets, because once you've got this list built out, that then allows you to know, you've now identified who to connect with, and then you can start to build your visibility, your credibility with those individuals and get towards profitability and push that relationship to the next level by having conversations where you can support one another's business by talking about things like marketing together, sharing and market knowledge, generating more business for one another, supporting one another, and really just being that support network and that community for other businesses that exist. So now you know who to network with. What happens next? Like, what is the next move? Before we do move on, though, I do want to launch. We do have a couple of questions through our poll, so we're going to launch those questions. The first question that I'd like you to answer, it will come up on your screen shortly as we launch that. I would like to know if you've tried to close someone after meeting them for the first time at a networking event. So you've just met an individual. Have you tried to close them on your sale? So we're going to launch that poll.
I don't see it yet. I'm not sure if our team is running it or if there's an error.
There is an error on my end. Do you mind trying Rav on your side?
Yeah, I'll give it a whirl. Yes, I'm also getting an error. So Aaron, maybe if we're able to put it in the chat, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely.
If you can maybe read off that question, everybody, maybe they can fire a yes or no if that's easy to do in the chat.
For sure. So I'm going to drop in the question and then I'll get you to answer. So the question is, have you ever tried to close someone after meeting them for the first time? And by close, I mean close the sale. So ask for that close.
And someone by the name of, I won't mention names. So we have a yes. I won't tease this individual since I know them. We have another yes for sure. And I've done it myself. So I'll be, this is Rav, of course, and I'm guilty of it myself.
Couple yeses, yes. So a few of us have tried to do that. So then the other question I have for you, and we'll chat a little bit more about that, is I have a follow-up strategy after attending a networking event. So this is a follow-up question to that.
Sorry, Aaron, we did have someone that said sometimes. So basically depends, I guess, gauging the client, see if they're interested and trying to make sure that, this person can be of help first. So there are some yeses. And then of course, the next question is, do we have a follow-up strategy after attending a networking event? Or is it one of those situations that we call spray and pray? where we give out as many cards as we can, collect as many as we can, and they end up forming a nice pile on our desks. So do you have a follow-up strategy after attending a networking event? If you're able to drop in a yes or no into the chat, that would be fantastic.
Seeing yes come through. All right, perfect. So let's chat about this a little bit. We are both big believers in doing what is right for your client. And sometimes based on the conversation that you have with someone, they may say, yes, I do require your products or services, and you know that you can go in for that close. And in many cases, what you'll want to do in all cases is identify if they're ready for that. So judge where in the conversation they are and really give some consideration to, are you going in for a close that's a little bit premature? Have you started to sell to them when the relationship isn't at that level yet and you don't quite have that permission to? And so we'll talk a little bit about what that is. I do want to touch on follow-up strategies. So a few of you have indicated yes, you do have a follow-up strategy. Others have indicated yes, but it may need a little bit of work. And so I'm going to share with you what works for me, and Rav will give a little bit of insight as well. This is the strategy that works. But I want to start this conversation about follow-ups by saying it's important to have a plan in place that works for you. I can certainly tell you what works for me, but if it's not going to fit your calendar and your day, then it's never going to work for you. So when it comes to creating a strategy, I'll share what those are. But in terms of actually executing it and putting it in your calendar, you've got to make it work for you. As business professionals, we do a really good job to block off time to network. But sometimes what we lack is that structured time to have a follow-up and create that follow-up plan. What I personally have found works best for me is to have time blocked off in my calendar to follow up each afternoon. Afternoons may not work for you. So that's why I say you've got to pick a strategy that works well for you. For you, it may be having time in the morning. Make the system work for you. But the key is you've got to have a strategy and a system in place. That's what you need to do. Where you build it into your calendar, that's where you can tweak it a little bit to make it work for you. And so one of the strategies that I personally use that works for me and the system that I have in place is the 24/7/30 system. So each day I allocate a set amount of time to work on follow-ups. If you're not doing the same, I'd recommend that you do give some consideration to building in some time each day to follow up. Because I think we've all heard the phrase, the fortune is in the follow-up. Those follow-ups often become your IPAs or your income producing activities for your business. So by having them on the calendar, that's what will help set you up for continued success. So what does this system involve? When you first meet someone initially for the very first time, my recommendation is to drop them a note within 24 hours of the meeting. For me, I personally am a fan of handwritten notes, but I understand handwritten notes and cards don't always happen. Email is certainly an option, and it's better than not following up at all. In terms of cards and notes, there's some really great automated card companies that can be used, such as Send Out Cards, that sort of thing. The follow-up is fantastic with them. But what's really key is with this first step that happens within 24 hours, you'll want to personalize the message that you're sending and not a blanket email to everyone that you've connected with to sell them on your products. Comes back to that story that I shared earlier that Ivan said when we were at a networking event, and a majority of people have gone to try and sell their products and services. Give some consideration to those types of emails that you may have received in the past, right? How much notice do you take of them? Whereas if you get an email that has that genuine intention of building a relationship and the person wants to meet you and get to know your business, that's what sets you apart. That's what stands out in the inbox, and that is what will set you apart from others. It's building relationships. So within the first 24 hours of meeting someone for the first time, what you'll want to do is follow up with a quick note to say thank you and that you look forward to learning more about their business. The next step, so this is step 2, happens within 7 days. And what you'll want to do is engage with them on social media. Pick the platform that works most for you, that you are most active on. That could be Facebook. It could be, for many of us in an online context, a lot of us are looking towards LinkedIn or Instagram. The platform that you use the most and that you're most comfortable with is the one that you'll want to go with. But what's really key here is when you do reach out, you're not selling to them. You're reaching out to follow up, let them know that you appreciate connecting with them and that you look forward to hearing more about their business. You really want to make it more about the other person and less about you. So if you approach it from, I want to talk about myself, others aren't really inclined to want to take you up on that. A lot of platforms, for example, LinkedIn, will allow you to customize an invitation that is sent to them. So for example, when you send a connection request, you can add a note. And I think that's an absolutely amazing way to be unique and to stand out, or to offer a reminder as to who you are. For example, I'll often say, hey, Rav, thanks for connecting with me. It was great to meet you at XYZ yesterday at the networking event, last week, at the networking event last week. It was really great to connect. Looking forward to hear more about your business. So really giving them a little reminder of when we met and where we met, so that they know who I am and that it's not just a cold call. Rob, do you have anything to add to that, to those invitations when you would send them out on personalizing them?
No, it's exactly that. So I use Google Calendar just to schedule in the 7-day, the 24-hour 7-day, and then the next stage. And then if schedule doesn't permit, I will schedule send my email. So I'll prepare them, customize them. I'll queue them up so that they schedule send. Just as a note though, I use this strategy for in-person situations and for online when I'm prospecting and building my LinkedIn connection. So this is something that can be done virtually and in person.
And so in terms of tracking, so I will have a list of who I'm connecting with, and I will have the 24/7/30 columns. So I'll know where I am in terms of contacting those individuals and the dates that I need to contact them with, so that it's actually happening. So I find that spreadsheets work for me. I'm a spreadsheet person. Others may find you may have a different method that works well for you. But what you'll want to do is make sure that you've got that A, built into your schedule to actually follow up, and B, knowing when to follow up with those people. Rav, I know you use a different method. I use a spreadsheet, and you sometimes poke fun at me for using a spreadsheet. But what method works well for you?
So I use a CRM. So because of this, where I'm building alliances with other professionals that are sort of pursuing the same end user. I'm not dealing with 20 contacts, right? So it'll be 5 people that I put into my CRM, so that I can then log all the conversations. I'm really obsessive with note taking, note keeping, tracking the call, the form of it. So that way, when I follow up in a week or in 2 weeks time, I'm not stumbling over what I said or what I promised and tripping myself up. So I did gravitate from a spreadsheet to a CRM. There are tons out there. I know there's some professionals on the call here that do have some CRM experience, so I don't want to take from them, but I do now actively use a very simple CRM that allows me to take notes and schedule calls.
Perfect. And so again, it comes back to what works well for you. If it's a CRM or a spreadsheet. Rav poked fun at my spreadsheet because it wasn't as organized as he wanted it to be. It didn't work for him, but again, it works for me. So really identifying what you'll be able to stick to and how you can easily track when those follow-ups should happen. I do just want to touch upon something Rav said there. So this system works well for in-person, or if you're networking in an online context. So as things start to open up and we're able to see individuals again in person, some of us exchange a physical business card. What I often do is on the back of a business card, any of you who've seen me at an event, especially if I'm meeting individuals for the first time and I get a card off of a new face, you'll often see me taking notes on the back of the card, because I wish I could remember details about everyone, but I do have a brain like a sieve and I often forget things. So I'll take notes of memorable things about individuals. For example, if I cross paths with Stacy, I'll write down some key information about Stacy, about her business, that will help me in any conversations that we may have next. When I have those follow-up, or when I send those follow-up notes, it really allows me to personalize it. Spreadsheets, CRMs will allow you to do the same. You can add notes to easily remember who it is that you're connecting with. So we've talked about within 24 hours, you'll want to send a note to say thank you. Within 7 days, you will want to add or follow on social media. That brings us to the 30 part of the 24/7/30 equation. So within 30 days, what you'll want to do is set up a meeting. But what's really important here is you don't want it to be a sales call. You want to make it a relationship building opportunity. If it's a sales call, it will likely fall flat. If you lead with wanting to genuinely get to know the other person though, and build a relationship with them, it'll go a lot further in the long run. And so that's why when you approach it from setting up an appointment or a face-to-face or a phone call meeting or a virtual video meeting, set up a meeting to have a relationship building conversation. That's what's really key. So earlier when I mentioned visibility, credibility, and profitability, this is what's going to move you from visibility, particularly within that, the 24 and the 7 follow-up. The 30 is where you start to shift towards credibility and up into visibility. So those relationship building conversations it's gathering information about the other person's business, genuinely getting to know who they are, what their story is, why they do what they do, and what you can do to help individuals. When it's just human nature, when we approach things from how can I help you and what can I do to assist you and your business, it really is a game changer for a lot of us, because I think we can all agree that not many of us are asked that question, like, how can somebody else help us? But when we approach things from how can I help you, it shows a genuine interest in our businesses. And that's what draws more people towards you. So particularly following networking events, once you've determined who to connect with and you've connected with them, this is how to push those conversations to the next level. So coming back to what we discussed earlier with VCP, when you do connect with someone at a networking event, take a look at where you are in terms of VCP and allow that to guide your follow-up. For example, you may reconnect with someone that you've already got on social media. So you just tweak your follow-up ever so slightly. 24/7/30 works really well for those brand new faces. You may tweak it a little bit for those ones that you've revisited. So you may be jumping straight to, hey, I haven't met with you for coffee in quite some time. Why don't we set that meeting up? Because you might already be at the early stages of credibility with that person. So really identify in your mind, are you at visibility where you just know the person? Are you at credibility where you like the person and are moving towards P for profitability, where you've got that established trust? Identify where you are in that continuum of VCP and allow that to guide your follow-up to push that relationship to the next level. In particular, with any new faces that you do meet, your focus will want to be on building visibility and credibility. Without either of those, it's going to be a real struggle to move through to profitability because there's no basis for that progression. We don't have that established relationship and you don't have that permission yet to move through. And the trust simply isn't there. And a lot of us, there's two different types of trust that we operate by. We really want to make sure that all of our trust, that we start to build on that foundation so that we can really have profitable relationship with others. So now that we've discussed that 24/7/30 system, what's important is to get it onto your calendar. Is it going to be a morning standing appointment for you? As you drink your morning coffee, is that when you're going to do your follow-ups? Is it going to be an afternoon standing appointment? Right when you get back from lunch every day, is that when you're going to do your follow-ups and your income producing activities? It was a real game changer for me when I started to get that strong follow-up system on the calendar to be able to follow up with individuals. Now that's my non-negotiable. I may have an appointment request and I might need to shift it by half an hour or an hour, but it never gets removed from my calendar, because when I know if that appointment gets removed, the follow-up's not happening and then the follow-through is not happening. So it's really key to keep that on the calendar so that we can ensure that it's there. And that's what's going to help make sure that all of your goals that you have do get achieved. So before we move on, I do just want to open it up to any questions. If you'd like to pop any questions that you may have in the chat. I know there are a few questions in the chat. Rob, if you wanted to jump in and expand on any of those, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem. We had a question just about the CRM. So I'm definitely not a CRM pro as much as I love technology. I selected something called Nimble. There are many out there. I know there's HubSpot and some others. I needed something simple just to put in someone's contact info, some notes, and sync it with my email so that it kind of brings in all the sources. It also brings in the social media feed into that. So that way, when I click on Erin Deep's profile, I can see her LinkedIn, her Twitter, and then I can see all the email correspondence that I've had all in one spot. So again, for me, I just didn't want to trip myself up as I do my follow-ups and my follow-throughs. So that was the one question there. So far, there's no other ones, but that's okay.
Okay, is everyone furiously typing? I'm going to keep talking while everyone's typing. So now that we've had an opportunity to focus on building your VCP, we're hopeful that you'll be able to use these strategies to take your business to the next level. I do encourage you to use that Profitability Hub to really identify who you want to connect with and to go into networking events with a clearly identified objective. So now you'll be able to say the next networking event you go to, okay, I've got these 8 individuals. I'm focusing on these key 8 today. This is who I would either like to connect with at that networking event, or this is who I would like to get an introduction to as a result of going to that networking event. Those individuals may not necessarily be in the room, but you may have people in the room that can connect you to them. So keep that in mind as you start to align yourself with these individuals. And the same would work for any online prospecting that you may do using whatever social media platform works for you, be it Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Have a look at those 8 names or more around your Profitability Hub that want to align with your target market, and start to extend those invitations to them to have a conversation. Connect with them, discuss with them those business strategies, start to move through your visibility, credibility, and profitability so that you can continue to grow your business that way. Once you've made those connections, though, the key is then to follow up, follow through, and follow back, because that's what's going to help you be successful in the long run. Rob, I saw you unmute. Were you going to jump in there?
Yeah, I was just gonna, just to sort of tie it all together. For me, this was like the light bulb went off because it shortens the sales cycle. So in my previous life, my previous career, I was chasing the next deal, right? Which is and it's sort of a spinning wheel, and you have a hub on the screen. And so as much as we want that deal tomorrow, when I took a pause and looked 30 days out, I started building alliances with those professionals that are non-competitive, that are pursuing that same client. And so then, like you said, it grew exponentially. So instead of me exhausting myself going through the sales cycle, prospecting somebody, doing the introduction meeting, I'm meeting people that client already knows, likes, and trusts. So going back to your example, if I'm the SEO person, the restaurant owner already trusts the bookkeeper. Of course they do. So instead of me trying to now go into the restaurant owner, knocking on the door, finding out who the owner is, I'm trying to sell my wares. It's a little bit more efficient for me, better economies of scale, to meet with the bookkeeper and get that trust. And now I'm going to get a guaranteed in. So when they open that door at the restaurant, it's going to be on a platter for me. Again, no pun intended. That was a poor attempt. So for me, it was we're all here to make money. Networking is great, but at the end of the day, we want to build our businesses. And for me, it was a much shorter sales cycle. As long as I started looking 30 days out, it's just more efficient, and it's less exhausting. Back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. And what you'll find happens is, I'll provide another example. When one of the professions on that Profitability Hub enters a conversation, it makes it so much easier for the others too. And so in Rav's, the example that Rav used, the bookkeeper can proactively say, hey, you know what, I've got an amazing SEO expert that can help you out in getting the name out you're getting your business's name out. I'll use a real estate example. When a realtor is contacted to list a house, one of the common questions that the realtor is then asked is, do you have a mortgage advisor that you can recommend? And then the mortgage advisor is often asked, well, do you have a lawyer that you can recommend? And then the lawyer is often asked, well, do you have an insurance expert that you can recommend? And so that sales cycle, like Rav said, really gets shortened. And so that client is then passed from one person to the next, kind of like a hot potato. The referral gets passed along. Everyone's got the best interest of that individual in mind, but because you've aligned yourself with other individuals who are in non-competing industries and who want to see you do well and who know who your ideal clients are, you're front of mind for them, and you are the one that becomes their go-to person, because they know that they can connect you together to start to lead that conversation further. So on behalf of Rav and myself, we appreciate all of you being here today. We do have an opportunity for some questions. So if you want to drop them in the chat, we're happy to answer. We're more than happy to connect with you outside of today's session to continue to support the growth of your business. And we are going to leave you with just one final quote. And again, a big thank you to the Chamber and the sponsors for hosting today's event. So we're going to leave you with one closing quote to wrap up today's session. And that is, networking is about investing a little social capital before asking for a withdrawal. And that is from the founder of BNI himself, Dr. Ivan Meisner. And with that, we thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing all of you again soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Rev and Erin Deep. Thank you all for joining us for today's session, and please note that this presentation will be accessible on our YouTube account as well.